I've been wanting to do this for quite a bit now, and today just felt like the day. I've actually tried to record this video a couple of times, and I kept feeling like God would tell me, keep it simple. I'm a talker, so I usually will go on for a long time, and who knows how long I'm gonna take to actually say everything and film the entire video, but I just was really reflecting today on the reason why we do this. And when I say we, I mean why people who love God and people who know God, why we do what we do, why we serve God, why we want to serve God. And I know a lot of people that I follow and a lot of the people that I know aren't Christian. They don't speak this language that I'm going to be, the way that I'm going to be talking right now. They don't really understand. And that's okay. But I think I haven't really spoken fully as the person that I am if I'm not speaking this way. But my entire life revolves around God. Everything that I am, the reason that I am, who I am, my joy, my faith, my will to wake up in the morning, my will to forgive, my will to heal, everything comes from God. And I would not be the person that I am without him. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about that because I think I've lived here in the States for 2 years now, but my story goes way, way back, and I haven't really spoken of this. I grew up Christian, as a lot of people know. People who know me know that. I grew up Christian. I went to one church my entire life in Canada called Nuevo Amanecer, or NA, New Arising. And it was my safe haven. It was my safe place my whole life. People who I've considered to be family since I was a kid all go there, and they are all part of the NA family. A lot of them are still there, actually. But growing up, I knew about God and I loved God, and I never had a reason to not. I think I just, when you're born into, religion, as people like to say it, or when you're born into that sort of community, a lot of the things that you hear, like God loving you or Jesus dying on the cross for you, it becomes really normal, and the weight of it, or even what that means to you, it's not really a question. It's just more of, that's your normal, that's your truth, just because you grew up in that sense. And I never really questioned it. And growing up, I was always the kid in Sunday school with my sister who would just love to know the answers and to say the answers and to tell people. Just kind of loved to show off our Bible knowledge. But anyway, you can kind of get a picture or a grasp of how I grew up. But around middle school, and even before that, I gained weight. I was a pretty chubby kid, a pretty chubby middle schooler. And I never really realized it in myself until I met some of my really good friends back home, or were my really good friends back home. And I think I sort of just noticed that in comparison to them, I was a little bit bigger. And from there started a lot of insecurities. It's normal at that age, like 12, 13-ish, to start comparing yourself and start to see what other people have. And I just started noticing that I never got attention from any boys, but my friends did. And I was just needed that attention. I really wanted to fit in. And so I kind of got into this place with these friends. Not that they were pressuring me or were making me feel bad about the way that I looked, but I really wanted to look like them. And so everything they did, I did. Everything they ate, I ate. If they said something or made a comment about, my body or how I was dressed, I would make the adjustments and want to eat healthier and work out. And I just got into a place of not loving myself, and everything that I thought about myself was now being defined by everybody else and the way everybody else viewed me, the way everybody else saw me. And of course, comparing myself to other people and wanting to be the way that they were. And during that time, again, I grew up in a Christian household. It wasn't really my own. God wasn't my God. It was just God. I would, look up and feel like, oh, he's in heaven and, he watches me. But it was never anything personal to me. And during this time, again, I never got any attention from guys. And there was this one moment in the 8th grade, and there was this guy who I really, really liked, and he started giving me attention. We started talking a lot. I started to really fall for him, and we started dating. I was really young again. I was like 13. We started to fall for each other. This guy, man, he was really good with his words and just affirmed me in every way, shape, and form that I wanted, where nobody had, looked at me with eyes of like, whoa, she's beautiful. One of the first people to tell me every single day that he loved me, that, I was a reason for him to win his hockey game or to whatever. And of course, we were young, but to me, it was so real, and I just really loved him, and I thought I loved him, and I thought I knew what that meant, and when you're kind of infatuated with someone, and it was like the first time that was happening to me, you just kind of, and anything and everything for them. And of course, since he was telling me everything I wanted to hear and that I was longing to hear about myself from someone who I thought mattered, it just augmented how much he meant to me and how much his words carried weight in my life and to me, right? And so time goes on, and the relationship went from being something super exciting and super new and super like, oh my goodness, to just having a pit in my stomach every single day. We weren't going to the same school. I was constantly getting messages from like other girls telling me that he was flirting with them, doing all these things, and it just really got to a point where, whenever I would think about him, it was never good thoughts. It was always worry. And to set even that side apart, he also really wanted to push boundaries with me a lot. And before we dated, I knew he had already, done certain things and wanted to do certain things. I told him from the beginning of a relationship that I didn't want to do anything, that I wasn't going to give him the same thing that other girls have given him in the past. And of course he said yes, that he would wait, he would respect me. But of course, as time goes on and, I kept neglecting those things. 13-year-old boy, hormonal and, wanted more. There was one particular moment where I went over to his house, and I went with my sister because my parents would never let me spend time with him alone. And there was just something that really scarred me, I think really traumatized me, and he just really pushed boundaries with me that day and basically didn't understand what no meant and just kept pushing. And I remember in that moment, I felt very ashamed, and I felt like I was letting not just my parents down, who I was keeping this relationship a secret from, but also I felt like in that moment for the first time, like a judgment from God. And I remember I was just super upset at myself and super ashamed that I remember in my head I said, God, I know that you hate me right now, but I need you to save me from this because I can't. And a phone call from my mom really saved me from things going a lot further than they needed to go. And, I went home and I cried, and I didn't tell anybody about that situation because I felt ashamed. And I felt like everybody was telling me to be careful, that, it was going to end up the way that it ended up. And I just felt like whenever I looked at people and maybe thought about talking about it or telling people about what happened, I just saw like a big fat I told you shows on their faces, basically. And I didn't want to talk to them. And it pushed me into a lot of loneliness and a lot of silence and feelings of just pure shame. And during this time, I was also starting to get involved at church with the worship team, basically singing on stage. For those of you who don't know what a worship team is, but started to sing on stage, and we're singing songs about surrendering it all to God and loving God so much, and let me be loved by you and all these things. And I just felt like the biggest hypocrite every single time I stepped into my church, and every single time I would look people in the face and tell them that things were good, that I wasn't dating this guy, that we were just friends, and that we haven't done anything, and that I'm being really careful. And I just felt like the biggest hypocrite and the biggest liar, and I knew that God knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew that he knew, and I just felt so disappointed in myself, and I felt like God was disappointed in me. And because of all of this, I just fell into a lot of a lot of loneliness. And it got to a point with this guy also that after that specific thing happened, I just lost my feelings for him. I think the respect that I had for him and the respect I thought he had for me just kind of disappeared, and I was starting to get really, really fed up. Of course, I hadn't told anyone about it, so I was just really alone in this. I remember there was this one moment where I was just fed up. I knew I needed to end things with him, and I did, and I, for the first time, told one of my best friends what was going on. She basically forced me to break up with him in that moment, and I was very upset, of course, but my emotional attachment to this guy was just so strong that I just felt like I couldn't let go, and I went back 2 more times and finally ended things with him like 2 months later. But I think the hardest part of all of this is that although I was so angry at him and I felt so ashamed of all the things that I allowed myself to encounter and go through with this guy and not being really, really clear with my boundaries, even though I felt like I had, and all of these things, was that it got to the point where everything that he said about me is what I believed about myself, stemming from when I was little, comparing myself to other people, and just started to cling on to any identity that I could because I didn't have any for myself. And when we broke up, I just quickly grew to realize that I didn't love myself. So when I didn't have anything being said to me by him, everything that I had believed before just kind of felt like a lie. And I just realized, man, like, I don't love myself. My happiness was coming from my relationship with him and being told that I was loved by him, being told that I was beautiful by him, being told that I was worthy and enough by him, that now that I'm not hearing that and I'm not hearing it from him anymore, I don't believe it in myself because he must have been lying, and I don't have this anymore. I went into a month of just what I would consider just like a short depression. I was very alone, and the extent of everything that I went through with him and the experiences that I had that were kept secret were still kept secret even after we ended things, because of the amount of shame that I had and the amount of guilt that I had of being with him and of allowing things to happen to me. And I know that obviously, I was young and he was young and we were both pretty stupid and both made some mistakes. And could I have done things better too? 100%. Could I have avoided that relationship? 100%. But, at the time, I just felt really stupid. I felt really dumb. I felt like, why would I let this happen to me? Why would I allow to put myself in a situation where God is mad at me? Now I'm never going to be loved, and I'm never going to be worthy, and I'm never going to be able to tell people what actually happened with him. And so, I'm just going to have to be alone in this. And I was also just mourning and grieving my relationship with him and just like missing having somebody there to talk to every day, which is something I'm sure a lot of people can relate to in general in breakups, because breakups are hard. And it just got to a point where I was thinking pretty negatively about myself and just not talking to anyone, and the person people saw on the outside was a happy girl, the girl that I had always been, but in reality I was super broken. I felt unlovable at that point, and I felt alone. I just felt alone. I felt like there was nobody that could help me and nobody that would understand my situation. And so I was kind of pushed into this very, very, very lonely place, and it was really hard. It was very, very hard. I remember one day I was at church and I was put to sing in the morning. And I remember this day is a very special day and something that, kind of the point I wanted to get to after this whole story. And I'm sorry if this is a long video, and even if it's just one person who's seen this all the way through. I think there's a reason for it, and, I'm not making this video for me, and I'm not making this video to gain attention and gain views. I genuinely just felt like God wanted me to put it out because there's someone who needed to hear it, and so that's why I'm doing. So apologize for the long video, but that's exactly what I'm gonna do. That day I was on stage and I was worshiping, and I was a pretty all-time low. I don't remember how exactly I felt that day, but I just remember it was during this time, and it was November 7, 2020, and I was worshiping and I was crying on stage, and I just felt really touched by God during worship, and I remember I just put my head down, and for the first time, I felt like I had a vision. And I know, again, this might be unfamiliar to anybody who isn't Christian, but I basically just saw something. Anyway, I'm just going to go into it. I put my head down, and my parents were in front of me, and they were worshiping, and I closed my eyes, and I felt like I could still see them. So I was seeing them, but with my eyes closed. And this time, instead of it just being them, I felt like I saw a vision of Jesus standing in front of my dad. And he started to like walk towards me, and I noticed that he was crying. And just the sight of that, like even remembering seeing that, was just so emotional. And I remember I saw him like extend his hand out to me, and he said, "Bella, like come to me. Why don't you just come to me?" And he was crying. And seeing that and hearing that just made me very emotional, and I just cried and cried and cried. I was just confused. Like I didn't really know how to really react to it, and that had never really happened to me before. And so I just kind of thought about it all day and didn't really tell anybody, because I was just trying to make sense of what I had seen. And it was just a very emotional morning. So I had that encounter, but I didn't really, there was not a lot of weight to it in that moment. And I remember later that night, as we always did after church, after events at church, we would hang out with some friends. And I remember that night specifically, my brother's friends, Diego and Jirai, were going to stay over at my house. And we were all at our house. And if you don't know, my brother is an artist, and he makes music. And him and Jirai, who's also an artist, they were making music, and they were doing it in the basement. And meanwhile, they were making music. Me, Diego, and my sister were all sitting on the couch, and we were just talking. We were just in conversation, and out of nowhere, Diego just starts talking to me about his relationship with God. And we're just talking. Don't really know how we got into this topic of conversation, but he just started telling me, about this, like, relationship he had with God. He was telling me, his interactions with God, and how, there were moments where, like, something would happen and that he would, like, say to God, blah, blah, blah. And just, like, he was just talking about his relationship with God, like, as though it was an actual friendship. Like, as though it was, like, he was standing right beside him, and, like, he would just talk to him like that. And just hearing all these crazy testimonies of things that, God, he would pray about, and that God would do in his life, and that God would say to him, and the way that God would affirm him. And I remember just in that moment looking at him, and I just felt like a kid in a candy store. I felt like I was drooling internally, emotionally, because the way that he was talking about it, and the way that his face lit up, and the way that he talked about God, I was like, man, I want that. Like, I want that. I want to feel that way about God. I want to have a relationship with him where I can talk to him and feel like he hears me and sees me, and that he loves me, and that he's there the way that I'm seeing that Diego has a relationship with God and is doing this. And I was like, bro, I need this. I need this. I need this right now. And I felt like a wave of emotion rush over me. And I was just like, whoa, okay, like, what's going on right now? Like, what's actually happening? And for the first time, I felt like something literally rose out of me that, like, I couldn't hold it back. And I just started talking. Like, I felt like, now looking back, I think it was just like a push from the Holy Spirit that was like, okay, time to speak. And I just started telling him everything that I was going through. And I just blurted out, what I was going through with my ex and this breakup, and how, I messed up, and there were so many things that happened, and that I was ashamed, and that I was lonely, and that I didn't feel loved, and I don't love myself, and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I'm like speaking, I just feel like this like heat on my back of like pressure, but like not the pressure that's like pulling me forward, but like a pressure where I felt like I could finally breathe. It was just the most surreal thing. I remember Diego was just smiling at me, and he just started telling me, what our relationship with God was, and how that could really change things for me, and that being a Christian and him understanding, because he grew up Christian as well his whole life, that being a Christian wasn't about just going to church on Sundays, and it wasn't about just reading the Bible and knowing the stories of the Bible, and like it wasn't just about knowledge. It was about revelation in your life of knowing Jesus and knowing that he's a friend and that he is closer than a brother, as the Bible says, and that we can have a personal relationship with him where I can talk back and forth with God, and that I can hear him and I can feel loved by him, and that just allowing myself to embrace full surrender of understanding I can't do this on my own and I can't do this in my own strength allows him to fill me up with everything that I've needed. Allows him to fill me up with the love that I've needed, the joy that I've needed. And, at first I didn't really understand it because I hadn't experienced it, but I don't remember if he prayed for me, but he might have. And he just gave me a really tangible way to start a relationship with God. And, as soon as my mindset changed towards that, and it was kind of like a switch of like, I'm not just Christian, like, I don't just believe in God, like, I want to know God. I went upstairs that night and I opened the notes on my phone and I just started writing down all of the things that I was hurt about, all the people that had hurt me, even including myself, and writing all of the reasons that I needed to forgive them. And Diego had told me that a relationship with God can start with healing and surrendering and forgiving people. And so that's what I did. That's how I started. Not that that's the only way that you can start a relationship with God, but that's what it was for me. And I just went day by day going through that list, forgiving myself for things, forgiving my ex for things, forgiving, my parents for things, my sister, my brother, my friends, and even asking God for forgiveness of not allowing him to love me, which sounds crazy, but he was there. And throughout that entire process, I think the thing that I realized the most was that he was there through all of it. And he was watching me, and he was listening to me, and he knew the thoughts that I had late at night, and he knew the struggle that I had at being alone. And, when nobody else could feel my pain, he was feeling my pain. And I realized after that time that there was actually a lot of moments where I felt like God was trying to love me, but that I was pushing him away. And a lot of moments where he was there, but I just didn't want to see him because I was literally under so much pressure of shame and guilt that I just completely ignored him and didn't see that I could be loved, that I could be worthy in him. And it was just so crazy. As the time went on, like from that point, by the way, November 7th, 2020, don't know if you've seen my Instagram, but every year on that day I post something because that was the day that happened. It was the day that I had that conversation with Diego, that I had that vision in the morning. And it changed my life. From that point forward, I didn't see God as this person in heaven. I saw God as a friend, as someone who was close to me, as someone who wanted a relationship with me. I understood that with the whole thing about Jesus dying on the cross, it was so that I could have a relationship with him, that he was here on earth and that God became human so that I could be able to make the only comparison I should be making, which is my comparison to him, to walking like him, to knowing how to treat people, how to love him, and allowing that truth to just succumb my life completely just changed absolutely everything for me. And just as time went on, it wasn't rainbows and butterflies, and I am going to say that because a life walked alongside of Jesus is the best life that you could possibly live, but it also comes with lots of sacrifice and lots of things that you leave behind. Not because God is trying to implement rules in your life, and I didn't feel like God was like, you need to stop doing this, you need to stop doing that, you need to stop doing that because I say so and that's it. No, it genuinely started to become a thing where I always explain it like this. When you put something beside something that is like super white, if you put like a really white tissue paper and you put it next to your teeth, suddenly your teeth don't look as white as you really thought they were. And in the same way, when we get close to God and when we walk towards a relationship with God, we're getting close to something that's so pure and so holy and so good that we start seeing the impurities on us, the unholiness in us, the flaws in us. And it's not something that should be condemning, but something that honestly, it's been more beneficial to me. It's things that I've seen that it's not something that's like, oh God, like you're trying to take my fun away. No, it's been like, wow, like I didn't realize that this was doing as much damage in my life as I thought. That, listening to certain kinds of music, was really intoxicating my brain. That watching certain kinds of movies and TV shows, like reading certain kinds of books, whatever, was allowing me to fall into, depressions. And looking back at old pictures of my ex, I didn't realize that that was, allowing me to dwell in the past, which is not allowing me to move forward. Like, these aren't things like, and when I say sacrifice, it doesn't mean you're, letting go of something just because God is telling you, which partly yes, but it also means you're letting go of something that God knows is ultimately doing damage to you in your life and keeping you held in places that you're trying to let go of in your life. It's not about just, I'm just going to do what you tell me just because you tell me. And you get to a point where it really is that, because sometimes God doesn't give you a reason. But because I've learned to trust Him, that every single sacrifice that I've made, every single time I've walked closer to Him, it's done more good in my life than bad. It's made me more happy, more joyful. It's brought me more peace into my life. When I realized that, when I started to do that, that's when I was able to say, God, you're telling me this, and honestly, I don't understand why. I don't know why I have to stop talking to this person or why I shouldn't watch this TV show, but you've shown me. You've been faithful to me, and you are worthy of being trusted, that I trust you so much that I don't even need to know why. Because I already know that if I do watch this show and get to a point where I'm like, dang, this actually did affect me, I'm going to be pretty sad that I didn't listen sooner. I hope I'm getting across what I'm trying to say, but the point is, a relationship with God is so beautiful. It is not compared to anything else that I've ever experienced or known. And I can say that my life before God compared to my life after God is a life that I have lived to the fullest. It's a life that does not compare at all. I would not trade it for anything. There's no moment or point in my relationship with God where I have said to myself, I wish I never started this. I wish I never started my, like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe it and explain it, because it is this thing where when you just fully lay down your life to someone who truly wants it, everything changes. Everything changes. The way that you act, the way that you love people, the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you talk. And God just has a way of bringing the best out of you and pruning you and helping you grow into exactly the person that He created you to be. Now, I know that a lot of people don't really agree with a lot of Christians and Christians' viewpoints, and I do think that God gets very misrepresented in the church and gets very misrepresented nowadays. But I will say, don't let a bad reflection of people dictate the way that you see God, because people are human, and people who love God, including myself, have misrepresented Him many times and have made statements that are not necessarily true and that are used to put people to shame and condemn them more than love them. And if there's one thing that I've learned in this journey, it's that love changes everything. Jesus loves you. That's it. Jesus loves you. There is nothing else that you need to bring. There is nothing else that you need to let go of or do before allowing that to be a truth in your life. That is a truth in your life and can be a truth in your life from now. You don't have to change things in order to accept that and receive that from this moment. It's this crazy thing where Jesus has shown Himself as someone who says, come as you are. And it's true. Come as you are. And He will receive you just like He put his hand out to me and said, come to me. Why won't you come to me? It's because he just wants you to experience his love first. And the faster that you let him love you, the faster you're going to be able to embrace it and understand it. And nobody is unworthy of that love. I can assure you, nothing that you have done or said or thought will ever take you far enough from God that he can't love you and meet you where you are. In fact, I know for a fact that he's just waiting for that day where he can love you. He's not waiting at your door so that you can open and come in with a list of all the things that you've done wrong and that you need to change immediately. No. God waits at your door so that you can open it to him and so he can embrace you and love you and then have a conversation with you and talk to you and get to know you and love you and love you. So I just wanted to say that. This was very long. I don't know if this resonated with you or not. Whoa, my grammar during this video has been pretty bad. I don't know if this resonated with you or not. I don't know if this is, pretty or if this made you feel anything, but I just wanted to say that if at any point during this video you felt something tug on your heart, follow that curiosity. My life is a testimony. My joy is a testimony. My faith is a testimony. Every time I've stood up from falling is a testimony to the fact that a life with Jesus is a life that is fully worth it, that is full of love, that has changed everything in me. The way that I go about life is so different because I've given it to God, and I'm so grateful that I have. I wouldn't trade it in for the world. There's just nothing no one could ever say to me to make me trade this in for anything. A life lived with God is a life full of joy and love and peace. And I don't know where this is in the Bible, but Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I don't know which of you is tired of the thoughts in your head, of the anxiety, of the depression, of feeling like your life will never amount to anything, or feeling like you're not worthy of love because many people have left you and rejected you and have let you down in your life. But if you are tired and you don't want your life anymore, and you're tired of striving and fighting, I assure you that if you give it to God, if you give it to Jesus, he will give you the rest that you want, the rest that you've desired, the rest that you've needed, the rest that he's wanted to give you, because he loves you. He loves you. He loves you. That's all for me right now. I'm just going to close this off in prayer. That sounded very pastor of me. Anyway, I'm just going to pray for you really quickly if you're still here to the end, and if you've actually listened to this whole thing. I'm going to leave it off with this. If you need help, you need someone to pray for you, or you want to talk to someone just about this and just all the thoughts that you've been having towards this, if you're nervous, you're scared, you don't understand it, or you need more clarification on something I said, please talk to me. I'm here. My sister also. There's a lot of people who are available, and God, who you can talk to at any moment, any given time, and he will listen, and he'll be there. And I challenge you to do it. Anyway, God, thank you so much for this time. I don't know who's across the screen. I don't know who's actually watching me, or, if it was only even one person, God, that stayed until the end and that actually heard all of this and heard something that you wanted to tell them, God. I'm just so grateful, Lord, and I just pray for your hand over their life, Lord. I pray that every single thing that you wanted to reveal to them in this video of something I said, God, I just ask you that you just pour your love on them, Lord. I just ask you that you encounter them in their lives in ways that they never could have imagined, Lord. I pray that if they challenge you and ask you to do something, God, that you do it. I know you don't like us to test you, but I just pray that you show yourself in their life, Lord, and I just thank you for whoever's across the screen. I pray for their family. I pray blessings, God, in their life, and I just thank you so much for this time and this moment, Lord. And I just love you, and I pray that this was a blessing for whoever you wanted to hear it, Lord. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. So, This was definitely uncomfortable for me, and who knows, maybe I'll do this again one day. I probably will. Probably not as long next time, because I've been filming for quite a long time, but anyway. I hope you guys are having a great day. And if you're having a great night, I hope you have a great night. Okay, bye.